Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. Today, we're looking at something pretty urgent unfolding in the Caribbean. Venezuela is mobilizing. And just as that's happening, U.S. warships are reported to be edging closer, hundreds of Venezuelans. They're answering President Nicolas Maduro's call to enlist. So the big question is this the start of a dangerous showdown between Washington and Caracas? We're going to examine the latest report from AP News, really using that as our guide to understand what these specific moves tell us right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation charged with potential meaning. And this AP report gives us a really valuable snapshot, just the immediate actions, what Venezuela is doing internally and this significant U.S. military movement externally. Understanding how these reported actions might interact, well, that seems absolutely vital at this moment.
Okay, so let's unpack that first piece. President Nicolas Maduro calling for citizens to enlist. The report states the purpose is to, quote, help with security duties. Now, security duties, that sounds a bit vague, doesn't it? In a place like Venezuela, what might that actually cover on the ground?
That's a really good question because security duties can mean a lot of different things, can it? Especially under Maduro. It often goes way beyond just, guarding borders. We could be talking about internal policing, maybe crowd control, keeping order, or even controlling things like food distribution, infrastructure. That becomes really important when the economy is under strain. And, sometimes these calls are implicitly about projecting strength, maybe suppressing dissent, consolidating power, calling people to national service. Even for these seemingly broad security duties, it's a tool governments can use. Rallies the base, looks strong, exerts control, especially if they feel external pressure.
So it's potentially much broader than just defense. It could be about internal stability, perception management, and the response. The report says hundreds are lining up. What does that tell us?
Exactly. And that immediate response is quite telling, isn't it? The report specifically says hundreds of Venezuelans lined up Saturday at plazas and military posts across the country. First, hundreds. That's not insignificant. It's a visible turnout. Suggests, well, it could be genuine support or maybe effective government messaging or perhaps other pressures to participate. It's hard to say for sure from just the report, but the number itself is notable. And the locations, plazas and military posts.
Right, public spaces, official places.
Precisely. These are very public, often symbolic areas, so it's not happening quietly. It's a very open display of, compliance or perhaps national feeling. Answering the call right out in the open across the country, it makes it clear this is a widespread government-directed effort being visibly acted upon.
That public element, the lining up in plazas, that really adds a layer, doesn't it? It feels quite deliberate. A message for people inside Venezuela, but also for anyone watching from the outside. It's a potent image of, mobilization in action.
Oh, absolutely. It helps build that domestic story, national unity, readiness. That's often really crucial for leaders, especially when they're talking about external threats, perceived or real. It suggests a level of government reach and public reaction that definitely warrants attention.
Right.
This kind of public show contributes to that feeling of heightened alert we mentioned.
Okay, now let's pivot to the other major element in the report. As this enlistment is happening, AP News also notes that U.S. warships edge closer to the Caribbean. Doesn't sound like a minor detail. U.S. warships near Venezuela while this mobilization is going on. I mean, that sends a message, right? What kind of message is that?
It's a classic move. What military analysts often call presence projection, or sometimes more bluntly, saber rattling. It's a clear signal, even without saying anything directly. Historically, putting naval forces in international waters near another country, it does a few things. It signals you're ready to protect your interests, maybe deter actions you don't like, or perhaps reassure your own allies nearby. These ships aren't just symbolic. They carry real military capability. So their presence forces Caracas to think, okay, there's a powerful navy nearby watching. It makes them weigh their options. It's a deliberate display of force, absolutely designed to be noticed and influence the situation without actually, firing a shot.
A nonverbal warning, essentially, a strategic posture. When you say deterrence, what specifically might the U.S. be trying to deter in this context, and how would Caracas likely read this message?
Well, broadly, they'd likely want to deter anything the U.S. sees as destabilizing. That could be military moves against neighbors, messing with shipping lanes, maybe even internal actions that could spiral into a crisis needing outside intervention. It's a broad umbrella. From Caracas's viewpoint, they almost certainly see this as a direct challenge, a show of force aimed right at them. It signals, hey, there are lines you shouldn't cross. What those lines are might be deliberately ambiguous, and the timing happening as they're mobilizing internally. That just amplifies how it's likely perceived. It looks like a direct countermove in this unfolding narrative.
So let's connect those dots then. We've got these two distinct things reported. Venezuelans signing up for security duties after Maduro's call, and at the same time, U.S. warships moving closer to the Caribbean. The report emphasizes they're happening in parallel. That word "as" seems important. What does this simultaneity suggest? What kind of perceptions or even risks arise from them happening together like this?
Yes, that reported timing, the as, is where it gets really interesting, I think. It highlights what international relations folks call a security dilemma. The
Yeah.
concept.
Where actions one side sees as defensive, the other sees as threatening.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So Venezuela's mobilization, they might frame it purely as defense, internal security. But the U.S. might look at it and think, is this preparation for something else? Is this internal crackdown escalating?
Hmm.
And conversely, the U.S. warships positioned as deterrence, projecting stability. Venezuela likely sees that as aggressive, as justification maybe for their own buildup. So you get this potential feedback loop. Each side's move, even if intended defensively, can ratchet up the tension and the other side's suspicion. It increases the risk of, miscalculation or even an accidental clash.
That makes sense. The security dilemma kind of feeding itself. How does that play out specifically here between Venezuela and the U.S. based on just these reported actions?
Well, it basically pushes things up the escalation ladder, so to speak. Neither action is direct conflict, obviously, but the enlistment drive, that's one step. The naval deployment, that's another step. It raises the stakes, increases diplomatic temperature, military readiness levels, probably sharpens the rhetoric on both sides too. And remember, this isn't happening out of the blue, right? U.S.-Venezuela relations have been tense for a long time. Disagreements, sanctions, accusations. Maduro's government often uses perceived external threats to try and rally support, especially with the economy struggling. And the U.S. has consistently voiced concerns about democracy and stability there. So these reported actions are landing on already fertile ground for mistrust.
And the AP report, just by presenting these two things side by side, it kind of frames them as linked, doesn't it? It suggests this isn't just business as usual, but a moment of heightened alert. It sort of invites us, the audience, to see these not as separate events, but as part of one unfolding situation.
Precisely. The way the report is structured highlights that potential link, that heightened tension. It points toward increased concern about stability in the Caribbean region. It's a snapshot, capturing this moment where internal mobilization meets external military movement. The report isn't predicting war or anything, but it is clearly showing what is happening, the enlistment, the response, the warships, and letting those facts suggest a more volatile situation. It focuses on the immediate implications of these observable actions.
Okay, so bringing it all together, this internal mobilization, the external naval presence, what are the most immediate risks we should be aware of? Is it all-out conflict or maybe something else?
I think the immediate risk isn't necessarily, imminent invasion or war. It's probably more about miscommunication, misjudgment, things escalating unintentionally. In a tense environment like this, a routine patrol, a training exercise, something completely normal could be misinterpreted. That could lead to a sort of tit-for-tat response that nobody really wants, but it just kind of spirals. There's also the risk that this external pressure could worsen internal instability in Venezuela, or maybe the U.S. feels it has to react more strongly if it perceives another move from Caracas as aggressive. The report really highlights a moment where, frankly, caution and maybe clear communication lines are incredibly important, where the lack of them can be very dangerous.
Yeah, that image. Hundreds lining up to enlist while warships are nearby. It really does paint a picture of a region, well, on edge, what the immediate future holds for the relationship based just on these actions, and how other countries in the region might react. That's definitely something we'll need to keep watching closely. Well, thank you for walking us through that. It's certainly a complex picture emerging. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this look at these critical events. We really hope you found this breakdown insightful. If you did, maybe take a second to like this, share it with others who might be interested, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network. It helps us keep doing this. And we genuinely want to hear what you think about these developments. Please share your thoughts down in the comments section below. You can also join the conversation on social